Be at their seats. Clerk will has opened the roll and you may record your presence. Please rise and give your attention to the House Chaplain, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Representative Slingenshiepen.
Good morning, friends. Allow me to pray for you. Father, your word proclaims, "This is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it." I know you meant regardless of whether it was rain or snow or ice or warm temperatures and soft breezes. But if you give us just a little more of the warm breezes and a bit less of the freezing wind and cold, we'd be so appreciative. Regardless, we want to say thank you for safe travels and warm, comfortable surroundings. We've joined together this morning for the single purpose of serving the people of our great state. Thank you for the opportunities we have received to make a positive difference in the lives of all our constituents. Keep us vitally aware of the responsibilities we bear as we approach the work of legislation. Remind us, if you would, of the words of Jesus when he said, "And I say to you, that every careless word that men and women shall speak, they shall render account of it in the day of judgment. For by your words you shall be justified, and by your words you shall be condemned." Father, help us to think before we speak, and when we do make proclamations, remind us we own our own words. Allow our speech to always be filled with truth, integrity, and grace. Might the dignity of the office where you have placed us always be at the forefront of all the words we speak. Keep, Father, careless words from our mouths. We pray for our loved ones as they manage the responsibilities of the home while we're away. I pray they are aware of how appreciative we are of them. I now pray your blessings upon each of these representatives as they embrace the work set before them. I ask this in Jesus' name, amen. One nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
You push your button. Have all members had an opportunity to record their presence? The clerk will close the roll and record the attendance. Introduction of bills and concurrent resolutions. The clerk will read.
HB 2380 by Committee on Taxation, requested by Representative Carlin, an act concerning retirement and pensions.
Messages from the Senate. The clerk will read.
Announcing passage of SB 5, SB 7, SB 32, SB 36, SB 84, SB 125, SB 135. SB 5 by Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning elections. SB 7 by Committee on Local Government, Transparency and Ethics, an act concerning townships. SB 32 by Committee on Assessment and Taxation, an act concerning insurance. SB 36, an act SB 36 by Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources, an act concerning conservation districts. SB 84 by Committee on Judiciary, an act concerning crimes, punishment, and criminal procedure. SB 125 by Joint Committee on Special Claims Against the State, an act concerning certain claims against the state. SB 135 by Committee on Judiciary, an act concerning certain protection orders.
Speaker recognizes Majority Leader Croft for a motion to resolve into the Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the purpose of considering those items under the heading General Orders.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Speaker appoints Representative Estes to chair the Committee of the Whole.
Good morning, everybody. The first item of business is HB 2016. For the purpose of carrying the bill of HB 2016, the chair recognizes Representative Sweely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There were committee amendments. I move the adoption of the committee report.
You have heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The motion passes and the committee report is adopted. Please continue.
House Bill 2061 would amend the definition of critical infrastructure facility as it relates to the crimes of trespassing on a critical infrastructure facility and criminal damage to a critical infrastructure facility. This bill expands the definition of a critical infrastructure facility to include wireline, broadband, or wireless telecommunications or video services infrastructure.
The chair is having difficulty hearing the member. You may proceed.
The bill also clarifies that these facilities are included whether they are located within or outside of any public or highway right-of-way. The committee adopted an amendment to make clear that critical infrastructure facilities include lines above or below ground, antennas, radio transceivers, towers, wireless, support structures, equipment buildings, and other related structures and equipment. In committee, we had proponent testimony from Charter Communications and AT&T. There were no opponents. While a fiscal note was not provided, it is not expected that these changes will have any fiscal impact to the state budget. Are there any questions?
Does any member desire to speak to the bill? The chair recognizes Representative Osman.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The carrier of the bill did a fine job explaining the bill. We had a very robust discussion on this bill in caucus. What I would say is that, there's some background that goes into this bill, but because we don't have all of the any opponent testimony, I'm not going to necessarily speak on that today at the well. What I will say is that, feel free to vote your district, but I, for one, am going to be supporting this bill, and I would recommend as well as support. Thank you.
The chair recognizes Representative Penn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would the carrier of the bill please stand for questions?
Yes, I'll stand for questions.
Okay, it has come to my attention that you may or may not have served as a decorated combat veteran in these United States United States of America's Army. Is that correct?
It is correct.
It has also come to my attention that you may or may not have been on deployment in defense of this country. Can you please explain that vicious rumor?
Explain the rumor?
Yes. Were you ever on deployment?
Yes, I deployed 2 times, once to the Middle East in 2017 and 18, and then once to Eastern Poland in 2019.
Now, having been deployed to the Middle East myself in support of Operation Spartan Shield and Operation Inherent Resolve, were you ever deployed in support of either of those named operations?
In support of both of those, yes.
And then, colleagues, it has come to my attention that this young man actually served as a brother in the armor division. Is that correct?
It is.
Now, in your armor outfits, you are told that there are certain things that you can do inside of something that we call a tank. And there are 4 positions that we have in there. What position did you have inside of that tank?
The bottom position, or the first novice position, would be the driver, moving up to the loader, the gunner, and the tank commander. And I went to all of them but the tank commander. I was ending my career as the gunner.
Oh, you were a gunner. You were a gunner, you said.
I was.
As a gunner, there are different types of loads that you can put into that gun to rain down holy hell on the nation's enemies. One is called sabot. Can you please explain to me what a sabot round is?
Sabot is a particular tank round that has a tip of depleted uranium, the strongest man-made substance that I believe that we have found to this date. The max effective range is pretty much whatever the sight on the tank can see and whatever the laser can range or find, which is 4,999 meters. Has self-stabilizing pedals to continue to pick up kinetic energy, and it's pretty much the only thing that can penetrate a tank.
All right, now that right there was quite impressive. I don't think y'all understand what just happened, but he used to haze guys like me when we were coming through officer candidate school. They call it BOLIC down at the base. And for him to retain that much detailed knowledge of a sabot round is quite impressive. Now, when we talk about the commands for firing, what are the components of a firing command?
It'd be identifying the target, the direction the target is, the type of, the range that the target is, and then the type of ammo that you're going to use to address the target.
So if I were to come to you and say I have a firing command and that command is gunner, sabot, that guy from Hutch in the open, fire for effect, what would you say?
Gunner, sabot, that guy from Hutch.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you on his maiden voyage here before you as colleagues, that new guy from Hutch. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none. Representative, would you like to close your motion? Would you like to close?
I close, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports House Bill 2061 favorably for passage as amended.
Thank you, Representative. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and the motion passes. The next item of business is HB 2046. And for the purposes of carrying HB 2046, the chair recognizes Representative Penn and also admonishes we will not use one of the words you used before. Representative Penn, the chair has recognized you for carrying HB 2046.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to, Madam Chair, there were no committee amendments, and I move the adoption of the committee report.
There is no committee report to adopt. You may proceed.
Fantastic. Colleagues, House Bill 2046 is a bill that came to the Committee on Insurance. It was requested by the American Council of Life Insurers. It's a bill that pertains to insurance, where you're talking about the certain types of travel insurance policies that you're allowed to file under those lines to actually make a claim. Right now, the language that's in the regulation states that you have to file those policies under what they call the inland marine line of insurance, and this actually adds in the accident and health line of insurance. There's a lot of confusion in the current statute when filing those offers for travel insurance. So the resolution is to amend the statute, which is 40-2,239, to fully align with the NAIC's Travel Insurance Model Act. Now, as I said before, this came to us as proponents from the American Council of Life Insurers, and this model law defines the regulatory structure that is related to insurance, travel, and covers the market regulation, the premium tax, the rate regulation, and enforcement. And we are behind on this particular language in Kansas as it was adopted by the NAIC back in December 2018. And as of last May, we now have 36 states that have approved some version of this model act of this language. So this pulls Kansas into compliance. So we're going to resolve that confusion by making sure that we direct companies to file their travel policies under the appropriate line of business by adding accident and health line of insurance to what is currently the inland marine line of insurance. There were no opponents, there were no neutrals, there were no committee amendments, as I said before, and there was no fiscal note. I will stand for questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Is there further discussion? Or does any member desire to speak to the bill? The chair recognizes Representative Neighbor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The carrier of the bill did an ample job of describing the bill. It also, along with sickness, accident, disability, and death, covers coverages for emergency evacuation and repatriation of remains, which may not be covered in all insurances. This is a very good bill, and I ask for you to support House Bill 2046. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, Representative Penn, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I close. Excuse me, as you were. Madam Chair, I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports out House Bill 2046 favorably for passage.
You have heard the motion by Representative Penn to report HB 2046 favorably. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion passes. The next item of business is HB 2040. For the purposes of carrying HB 2040, the chair recognizes Representative Bohai.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There were no amendments. I rise before the committee to present HB 2040.
You may proceed.
HB 2040 would extend the deadline for when the Kansas Corporation Commission, KCC, must issue a final order for a high voltage transmission line siting application from 120 days to 180 days, allowing more time to work with stakeholders, i.e. landowners and farmers. There were no amendments. The proponents were the Deputy Director of the Utilities Division of the KCC. There was also written testimony from the Citizens Utility Ratepayer Board, the Kansas Farm Bureau, and the Kansas Livestock Association. No opponents, and there was neutral testimony from the representatives of Evergy, stating that the additional time could be a barrier in completing the project in a timely manner and an increase in cost. Sorry. With that, I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Representative. The chair recognizes Representative Ohabasham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The carrier of the bill did an excellent job explaining it. It's a good bill, and I ask for your support for HB 2040. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, Representative. The chair recognizes Representative Doppeldang.
Would the carriers please stand for a few questions? Representative, before you came up here, my understanding is you volunteered as a local behavior health facilities. Is that correct?
I did volunteer at a local behavioral
ahead.
health. Sorry. Yes, I did. Well, I volunteered and I worked at a behavioral health facility in Olathe, Kansas.
How long?
I was there from 2014 to 2021.
So quite a few years then.
It was several years.
Okay. So with your professional behavior health hat on, what do you think of this group?
Well, I think it's great that we get the opportunity to talk things out.
And that's it, huh?
Pretty much.
You got all walks of life up here, don't you?
We might.
So what do you think of the Utilities Committee so far?
I'm enjoying it tremendously, but I have a lot to learn still.
A lot to learn. Does it get technical on you at times?
Might get a little technical.
Okay. So on the technical side, you're District 15, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. We get into different aspects on the energy and the utilities and stuff, but can you tell me what the 15th item is on the periodic table?
On the periodic table, it has been a minute, lots of minutes, years, and at this time, I cannot.
Well, just so everybody knows, it's phosphorus.
Oh, well, we don't want to add that to water. That's potassium.
What's phosphorus do?
Again, I am not certain.
Phosphorus forms the sugar phosphate backbone of our DNA. And I just want to say that I think you form the backbone of our legislature. I truly appreciate working with you in the committee, and I'd like to welcome you to the legislature.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Is there further discussion? The chair recognizes Representative Essex.
Would the carrier of the bill stand for some questions?
I certainly will.
So aren't you lucky that you have two of us that are mentoring you at this point?
You know, I feel blessed.
Well, you do serve on the Utilities Committee, which we've already talked about a little bit. I still think we need to cover some definitions, though.
Sure.
I remember you walking into calendar hearing a bill being introduced, and it had the word poll worker.
I was a little confused.
I could tell.
I was a little confused.
So let's talk about the definition of POLL versus POLE.
Thank you very much.
Right. And we don't do poll worker legislation here specifically, so
just the POLL.
Right.
Got it. Thank you.
Just for the
Thank
future.
you.
Now, you're also in transportation.
I am.
And you are quite the world traveler.
I have been around.
So planes, trains, and automobiles, you've been on them all.
Yes.
So is there a chicken bus in there somewhere?
Yes. When I spent a semester abroad, I had the opportunity to ride a very full bus, and they called it a chicken bus because the people that were traveling from city to city, if they needed to take their livestock with them and they could fit on the bus, i.e. chickens, the chickens would ride the bus with us.
That's fantastic. Well, we can ask questions later for more of that. And your next bill, from what I understand, is a bill that has to do with trailers for transportation.
Yes, that would be House Bill 2030.
Oh, good job.
Mhm.
So you have some experience with trailers.
Not great experience, but yes, I do.
So I hear your dad actually fired you on the farm when you were pulling a trailer with bales of
Hay bales? So
Hay
yes,
bales.
when I was recruited, which was always the last resort, to help move the hay off the field, after my father had to basically widen every fence or every gate, he relegated me from that because I would either swing too wide and hit the far side of the gate or not swing wide enough and hit the near side of the gate. So I got moved to moving the straw bale or the square bales off the field manually.
Oh, trailer struggles. It's
Trailer
real.
struggles.
It's real. Well, the last thing I want to just congratulate you on is your first call of the house.
Yes.
And
yes.
your experience as a freshman was a little different because we were waiting on you.
I apologize.
All right, just making sure it didn't have anything to do with poll workers
No,
or
no.
pulling a trailer.
No.
All right. Well, I am your second. Welcome to the legislature, Representative. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
The chair recognizes Representative Barth. Was that unintentional on your part? The chair also sees that another person fixed their unintentional push. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, if there's no further discussion, Representative Bohai, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I move that when the committee rises to report, they report HB 2040 favorably for passage.
Thank you, Representative. You've heard the motion by Representative Bohai to report 2040 favorably. All of those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion passes. The next item of business is HB 2120. For the purposes of carrying HB 2120, the chair recognizes Representative Howe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. HB 2120 is a legislative proposal that pertains to the sale of land at Kansas State University. This bill would authorize the Board of Regents to sell 2 pieces of property, one located in Douglas County, Nebraska, and one in Riley County, Kansas. The property in Douglas County, Nebraska was being used for a clinic for the vet med, like a satellite clinic. The building in Riley County, once upon a time, used to be the old Kansas Farm Bureau headquarters building on Anderson Avenue, but in later years was used by the foundation and other administrative offices. In committee, there were no amendments. However, when we had calendar a couple days ago, there was a question about how do we ensure that the university will get fair market value for these properties? And when I looked closer at the bill and in consultation with the revisor, it looked like they were exempt from state statute in the bill, which would exempt them from getting 3 appraisals on the property to ensure fair market value for the property. So, Madam Chair, I do have an amendment.
The amendment is short. The clerk will read.
HB 2120 on page 2 in line 9 by striking 75-3043A, or on page 3 in line 28 by striking 75-3043A, or.
Does any member wish to speak to the amendment? The chair recognizes Representative Amix.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question for the carrier. Chairman, when we were in committee, we had discussion about an appraisal being required. Is it required?
Under the current legislation, they would be exempt from state statute that would require them to get 3 appraisals. And so I missed that in committee. And so that's why I'm trying to offer this technical amendment adjustment. So they are subject to the Kansas statute relative to getting 3 appraisals to ensure fair market value and that the taxpayers' property would be returned back and reinvested back to the state in a proper manner.
Okay.
So this would be for any value of real property that's over $200,000 as determined by the county assessment value of each property.
Okay. Thank you. Colleagues, this is probably a smart move. I would go ahead and support the amendment as written. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, Representative. Does any other member wish to speak to the amendment? Seeing none, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I close on the amendment.
You have heard the motion by Representative Howe to amend. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion passes. We are back on the bill. Representative Amick is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the carrier of the bill did a great job in explaining and with the amendment. So with that, I would encourage everyone to support House Bill 2120. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, Representative. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, Representative Howe, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And in closing, I just want to give credit to the good representative from Riley County for introducing this legislation, and also to make the body aware that the sale of the property in Riley County, they estimate would return $3.5 million to the university so they can address additional deferred maintenance. And for the Vet Med satellite campus there in Omaha, Nebraska, they estimate it would generate $1.1 million in revenue. And they could use that to renovate teaching spaces in Mosier and Trotter halls and to address critical deferred maintenance issues as it relates to the Vet Med program at K-State University. So, and I should also recognize this committee received testimony favorably from the Riley County Board of Commissioners. And with that, Madam Chair, I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports HB 2120 favorably for passage as amended.
You have heard the motion by Representative Howe to report HB 2120 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion passes. The next item of business is HB 2109. For the purposes of carrying HB 2109, the chair recognizes Representative Wilborn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There were no amendments. House Bill 2109 It's an act concerning law enforcement relating to public utilities, authorizing law enforcement to agencies to attach and operate law enforcement equipment on utility poles in the public right-of-way, exempting public utilities from civil liability. Make no mistake about it, this is a hold harmless bill for the utilities. When entering the pole attachment agreements with law enforcement agencies upon request, these agreements will allow law enforcement to attach, access, operate, maintain, remove their equipment on utility poles located in the public right-of-way. The agreements must specify the utility poles involved, the nature of the law enforcement equipment, safety, security specifications, and public utilities' discretion regarding the work performed. Additionally, law enforcement agencies are required to indemnify the public utility against any liabilities arising from these agreements. This arrangement has been going on for 20 years. There's been a symbiotic relationship between utilities and the law enforcement community. Unfortunately, the last few years, there has been litigation involving the utility industry being sued for the vicarious liability of the law enforcement community. Furthermore, this bill stipulates that the public utilities may charge reasonable fees to recover costs associated with the attachment and maintenance of law enforcement equipment. Although they cannot charge for the space used, the law enforcement agencies are responsible for ensuring compliance with applicable laws, securing any necessary court orders. The bill also designates public utilities as instrumentalities of government entities under the Kansas Tort Claims Act. This provides them with a certain liability protection. There were no amendments in committee. The proponents were the Kansas Sheriff's Association, Kansas Association of Chiefs of Police, Kansas Peace Officers, State Fire Marshal, Wichita Police Department, and Kansas State Lodge of Eternal Order. There were no opponents. However, there was some neutral testimony from the Kansas Department of Transportation and CURB, Citizens Utility Ratepayer Board, concerned about maybe additional cost of administration and keeping records on this ballot. The estimated fiscal note on this for some of these places would be approximately $3,000 to take care of the administrative costs. And there were no committee amendments. And with that, Madam Chair, I close. I will stand for questions. Excuse me.
Thank you, Representative. You were apparently not very clear because you have a great many number of questions if you would like to look at the board.
I'm used to having my own microphone, and
The chair recognizes Representative Delbordang.
I gave you one job to do.
thank you very much.
And you went on and on and on, and I think we confused everybody up here.
That's my attempt. Of course, I came from the Senate. You know, that's the way.
Well, were you ever a lobbyist too?
I thought I was.
Then you went to the Senate.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know where to go on with this. Can I get the speaker maybe to come up and bail us out?
The speaker is invited to come to the podium.
It's ought to be good.
You know, this body has had a lot of interest in the Senate over the years. And since I've been here, I don't think we've ever had one come back or actually come to the House from the Senate. So I asked the body, how much, 3? We've had 3?
Yep.
How much training does it take to train a senator to be in the House? And how long does it take to train a senator to be in the House? Because we do have to train you. You have to become House trained. And isn't it interesting that you would start as a lobbyist, then go to the Senate, and then to the House? Isn't that kind of backwards?
In your opinion, it is, apparently.
So has it worked out well for you?
Yes, I'm so tickled to be here with this wonderful body and such a wonderful Speaker of the House.
You're doing good. You're doing really good now. Well, you know, when I saw that you were going to be here, I knew we had a chair on the back row. We knew that would be a good place for you. I was trying to take it easy and put you on some good committees. And then I started thinking about, what did I actually do? But you're going to be just fine. You're going to be a great guy. I know you're going to be fun. You've been fun already. Hope you enjoy it being in the House, because we're going to enjoy having you here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The chair recognizes Representative Ahabasham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The carrier of the bill did a fine job explaining the bill. With respect to the cameras, to the equipment on the utility poles, I think during committee there was some concerns with respect to Fourth Amendment rights of individuals. So with that, I mean, I'll leave it for the will of the body, with respect to the bill, but so far he did a great job in explaining it. So therefore, I'll leave it for the will of the body with respect to this bill. So thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
The chair recognizes Representative Carmichael.
Get out of my way, Senator. I got work to do.
Said, uh-oh.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is serious legislation, and after we properly welcome the distinguished senator from McPherson, I will want to just spend a few moments addressing the serious issues. And I cannot do nearly as well as my old friend, the Speaker. I don't know which one of these characters I've known longer, actually. Speaker indicates it was him. But I do have a few questions for the distinguished senator from McPherson.
Thank you, my friend, dear friend, Representative Carmichael, Esquire.
Oh, he must be at
Representative, we are not to use names. You are not quite housebroken yet.
On a somewhat serious vein, you worked in this Capitol long before you started to draw a state paycheck. You were claims manager at one time for the Farmers Alliance Insurance Company of McPherson. You're acknowledging yes. And in fact, part of the way I made my living when I was a young lawyer was representing your company and your insurance. True?
Yes, sir. And occasionally you were also on the other side.
That is true. I seem to recall some subrogation actions where one insurance company had a dispute with the other, and so I just picked up a little of the money as it went by. Yeah. But after you had completed your duties as the claims manager, then you became a governmental relations specialist for Farmers Alliance and worked here in the State House for how many years roughly?
Started in 1984.
And then you left the honorable profession of lobbying to become a senator.
Yes, sir.
And you had planned to retire from the legislature and spend more time with your lovely wife.
That is correct.
But as we all know, our friend, the representative from McPherson, and I guess I can actually say Les Mason because he's no longer a member, he passed away, and as I understand it, the Speaker contacted you on very short notice, and you agreed to continue to serve under those exigent circumstances. Is that correct?
Very close to it, yes.
Okay. And I'll tell you what, my Republican colleagues could have done a lot worse. And I'll just leave it at that, Senator. Welcome to the Kansas House of Representatives. I'm proud to serve with you, my friend.
Thank you so much.
You know, there is friendship and bipartisanship in this chamber. It's real and it's genuine. I do need to address HB 2109 on its merits. I'm probably going to vote against the bill, not because it's not a good idea. These cameras, whether we're talking about license tag readers or whether we're talking about what I think are commonly described as pan, tilt, zoom cameras on poles, are an important aid to law enforcement and are very important to the public safety. As I think I said in committee or somewhere, a friend of mine was murdered in the narthex of his church on a Sunday morning, and he was in jail by that afternoon, as I understand it, in part because of cameras on Interstate 135 and/or the Kansas Turnpike or other places that allowed the Johnson County Sheriff's Office to arrest that scoundrel without gunfire, and he now resides in the penitentiary where I hope he remains for the rest of his life. So don't get me wrong, but I think these cameras, whether they're tag readers or pan, tilt, zoom cameras, are important. My concern is that I don't believe that we've properly secured, first, the circumstances under which law enforcement may utilize these cameras to peer into private places. Now, there is some authority in Kansas that suggests, at least under some circumstances, law enforcement may have to obtain a warrant. But at the same time, law enforcement makes it very clear that they intend to put these cameras up, and they are already putting these cameras up in bad neighborhoods, high crime neighborhoods. I don't know if I really want to live in what George Orwell described as 1984. I'm also concerned that appropriate steps to safeguard the images obtained by these cameras have not yet been taken. The technology of observation has exceeded, or the speed of the technology of observation has exceeded, apparently, the ability to secure the data. And as a result, license tag data, by way of example, has been inappropriately accessed primarily by law enforcement officers, oftentimes to track their estranged spouses and their estranged spouses' new paramours, if you will. And the response that we get from law enforcement is, yes, but when we catch people doing that, we prosecute them and they lose their badge. And I think that has been true. But some of these things are accessed from literally now all over the country. We don't know how many intrusions into the privacy of Kansans have occurred. When we find out about it, if it's a Kansas officer, we do something about it. But I'm not satisfied that that is sufficient. I'll also tell you, if you want to examine how secure the data is from cameras operated by law enforcement, go on YouTube and type in Motorola hack, and you can learn how you too can access, for example, data and images from license plate readers all over the country. So this bill doesn't directly relate to the privacy issues, but it certainly facilitates the rapid deployment of both tag readers, but probably in this bill, more importantly, the pan, tilt, zoom camera. But the reason I'm voting no today is, frankly, to try to get their attention, to understand that just because this does in fact Save Kidnapped Kids. This does assist in apprehending and punishing the murder of my good friend. That doesn't mean that we can't take the steps to secure the data and make sure that Kansans are safe from prying eyes on their own property, and to really think hard about this idea. Do we want constant observation of everything we say and do outside the confines of our home? So I'm not urging my colleagues on either side of the aisle necessarily to join me in voting no on HB 2109, but rather I stand here in an attempt to get my friends in law enforcement's attention, to understand that no matter how valuable it is for crime fighting, that we also have an expectation of privacy in this country, and that indeed people have given their lives in defense of the Constitution that guarantees that right. So for those reasons, I will be voting no on HB 2109. And thank you, Madam Chair. And oh, it's so tempting to stay here, Madam Chair, but I'll leave it where it is. Thank you.
The chair recognizes Representative Carr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The carrier did an excellent job explaining and detailing what this bill entails. However, I have to reiterate some of the comments of my colleague that just left the podium. My concern is with privacy as well as abuse. I think it goes almost without saying that these cameras would more than likely be placed in large part in underserved communities, as those communities seem to be the communities where there are a higher instance of crime. And even though there's a higher instance of crime there, and I know that they have certainly an area of benefit, I still have to stand in the gap with respect to the privacy. And if I read this correctly, the bill would also exempt the public utilities from any civil liability. So that means that if something takes place and if someone's privacy is violated, even to a point where it could be criminal, that individual has absolutely no recourse. Aside from, the remote possibility of filing some sort of civil complaint with the police department, and that doesn't typically go too well. If I understand correctly, currently, in the event that there is a particular area, a particular home that we believe we have a fugitive that might be living in that home, there is a court order that can be provided where they would then be able to get access to one of those poles and put up those cameras. But to just arbitrarily decide that you're going to put cameras up that violate a person's privacy, and knowing that those people whose privacy will most be violated are those people that I serve, would certainly be my constituency, I would urge the body to vote along with me against this House Bill 2109. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. The chair recognizes Representative Goddard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Will the carrier of the bill stand for a question? Senator, Representative, I seem to recall that you've always been very concerned about privacy. Is that true?
I have been, but since my neighbors behind me put cameras on their backyard, and they're seeing in my backyard now, I've had to modify my behavior. And same way in the front yard, there's cameras by our neighbors across the street, so privacy is getting a little thinner as we go.
Well, you jumped way ahead. That was the answer to my second question. I really appreciate it. And seem to remember when we were office mates that you always had your door closed because you were so private. You don't want to talk to anybody. But as soon as I knock on the door, you always had a response. And I think I gave you a nickname. Do you recall what that nickname was?
Yes, Dad.
I would always go in and say, Dad, I need some advice. And he would always give me some advice. Thank you very much for being a friend, and thank you for being here in the House and being my seatmate on the back row.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative. The chair recognizes Representative Schreiber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in support of this bill for a couple of reasons. One is when I was with Westar, the predecessor company to Evergy, I was aware from time to time law enforcement would ask for access on the utility poles because they thought some particular crime was being committed in a certain area, which the utility was glad to do. But as time went on, there's always liability concerns with these kind of situations. And the reason for this bill is it does provide some liability protection to the utility, but it also provides some certainty about the placement of the cameras on the poles and so forth, that it's done either by the utility or by an approved third party. Because if you've been around me very long, my number one concern with electric service is reliability. And whenever there are objects placed, whether it's another line or an object like a camera, that can potentially affect the reliability associated with that pole, especially during very severe weather like a blizzard, a severe wind event or whatever. You'd think that those small objects would not cause a problem, but the engineers have convinced me that it can, and by putting it in there that the utility places the camera or an approved contractor, that provides some certainty for me that reliability is going to be maintained, which is, for me, the utmost concern of customers and our citizens. So I think that my colleagues from Wichita have raised concerns about privacy and so forth, and I don't take those lightly. They were also raised in committee quite well and strongly with the law enforcement folks that came in to testify. And I believe law enforcement is on notice that that security question is out there, and they assured us that they can take steps to protect that information. If they don't, then I'm sure we'll be revisiting this. But I believe this is a good bill, can provide good security in our communities, and so I support 2109. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative. The chair recognizes for the second time Representative Dubbelding.
Would the carrier please up for a couple of questions? Okay. I had a few people even in the committee ask me, why are we running this through the Utilities Committee? Why didn't it go through something like Judiciary or another one?
Well, I think the impetus was utilities. This is not a hold harmless for law enforcement. I didn't do a very good job explaining that. This is a hold harmless for utilities. Law enforcement still stands the test of any tort actions that could occur.
Mm-hmm. And then in this bill anywhere, there's been a lot of talk of the cameras. Does cameras show up anywhere in this bill? And I brought that up in the committee as well.
Obviously, they're at entrances, they're in every committee room, they're on the House and Senate floors, and I'm sure I missed some places, but yes.
No, the camera, but is there cameras mentioned in this bill?
No, just says equipment.
It's a law enforcement equipment, so it's more of a broad scope of that. So, thank you, Rep. I just want everybody to know this practice is happening today. It has been for a long time around. If you'll recall back, if I want to say a couple years back, we had some death threats that were imposed on some of the members of this body. When law enforcement came in, they wanted to come out and actually put some equipment on the poles in front of specific representatives' houses at their permission and their request. Evergy in that case was not allowed to do it. And it was because they were going through a lawsuit over on the Missouri side on just this. So it is simply a hold harmless clause to allow the utilities to work with law enforcement without having lawsuits imposed on the utilities themselves. So I guess I would ask that you support 2109. It can affect every one of us here as well. It is strictly a utilities bill, and it is directed toward the utilities, not law enforcement per se. So I thank you for letting me come up a second time.
Thank you, Representative. The chair recognizes Representative Bergkamp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Will the carrier of the bill stand for a few questions?
I will.
Thank you. The previous representative also had another question come up on my mind. If a person doesn't want the equipment installed on a telephone pole or neighbor, can they refuse it, or does law enforcement have the right to install it no matter what?
It has to be with the law enforcement and the utilities. It has to be an agreement on both sides.
And then the equipment, will it face residential houses or like public right-of-ways like streets, et cetera?
That's a very difficult question, in the fact that many are located high on the pole and have 360-degree surveillance. Depends whether it's a shot effective equipment or a camera. Not everything's a camera.
Yep. And on that point, it could also be a listening device or like a thermal camera.
I have to be careful about how I answer that. The statute says, or the bill says, equipment, and that can be pretty broad ranged.
Okay. Thank you for those answers. And just kind of reiterating more, I guess my personal point of view, I guess I'm just more concerned about people's personal privacy with some of the technology that's available out there. And I feel like it's pretty broad right now, how the authority that's given to law enforcement, but those are just my thoughts on it. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Is there further discussion? The chair recognizes Representative Curtis.
Thank you. And I have a question for the carrier of the bill. You know, we discuss it long enough and things come to mind.
I was afraid of that.
I know. So, okay, I heard you about this is really a bill that will allow utilities, public utilities to enter into a pole attachment agreement with the various utility companies. Is it possible that utility companies do not enter into an agreement? Is that is an option, correct?
To the best of my knowledge, that is not the case. Actually, utilities are now allowing law enforcement to do this. Nothing new on this side. What this bill does basically, does set some guidelines, but more importantly, it is a hold harmless for utilities for the actions of the law enforcement. So this is going on right now.
Okay, but you do say enter into utility pole attachment agreements. Do they today have to have a utility pole attachment agreement?
That it will be the case going forward if this passes.
And so a utility could then make the decision either to enter into an agreement or not to enter into an agreement, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, Representative Wilborn, you may close.
Thank you for the vigorous discussion, and I apologize for not doing a better job of explaining that this is purely a hold harmless agreement. Nothing is really new on the other side. Madam Chair, I will move that when the body rises to report, they report House Bill 2109 favorable for passage.
Thank you, Representative. You have heard the motion by Representative Wilborn to report HB 2109 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The chair is in doubt. Open the roll, please. The clerk will close the roll and the chair votes aye. The ayes appear to have it, 77 yay and 44 nay. The motion passes. This concludes our general orders. The chair recognizes the majority leader.
Madam Chair, move we rise and report.
You have heard the motion to rise and report. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The motion passes.
Clerk will read the committee report.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole recommends that HB 2046, HB 2040, HB 2109 be passed, HB 2061, HB 2120 be passed as amended.
Speaker recognizes Representative Estes to adopt the Committee of the Whole report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee report is adopted. Reports of standing committee. The clerk will read.
The Committee on Judiciary recommends HB 2183 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. The Committee on Child Welfare and Foster Care recommends HB 2075 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. The Committee on Veterans and Military recommends HB 2274 be passed. The Committee on Taxation recommends HB 2083 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. The Committee on Veterans and Military recommends HB 2256 be passed. The Committee on Judiciary recommends HB 2212 be passed. The Committee on Transportation recommends HB 2201 be passed. The Committee on Transportation recommends HB 2169 be passed. The Committee on Transportation recommends HB 2261 be passed. The Committee on Transportation recommends HB 2122 be passed. The Committee on Transportation recommends HB 2222 be passed. The Committee on Corrections and Juvenile Justice recommends HB 2215 be passed. The Committee on Education recommends HB 2185 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. The Committee on Education recommends HB 2140 be passed. The Committee on Elections recommends HB 2206 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. The Committee on Elections recommends HB 2106 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. The Committee on Health and Human Services recommends HB 2039 be passed. The Committee on Health and Human Services recommends HB 2170 be passed. The Committee on Transportation recommends HB 2168 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. The Committee on Transportation recommends HB 2121 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. The Committee on Elections recommends HB 2016 be passed. The Committee on Commerce, Labor, and Economic Development recommends HB 2088 be amended and the bill be passed as amended.
Is there any objection to returning to that order of business, introduction of bills and concurrent resolutions? Seeing no objection, the clerk will read.
HB 2381 by Committee on Appropriations requested by Representative Tarwater, an act concerning the Office of the Attorney General. HB 2382 by Committee on Appropriations requested by Representative Getz, an act concerning the State Board of Education. HB 2383 by Committee on Appropriations requested by Representative Turk on behalf of Senator Titus, an act concerning child care. HB 2384 by Committee on Federal and State Affairs requested by Representative Kessler, an act concerning the disposition of certain state real property.
House Bill 2132 is withdrawn from the Committee on Federal and State Affairs and referred to Committee on Child Welfare and Foster Care. Speaker recognizes Representative Croft for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to House Rule 2306, I move that House Bill 2033 be withdrawn from the calendar under the order of business general orders and be referred to the Committee on Education. I'll stand for questions.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Speaker recognizes Representative Croft for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to House Rule 2306, I move substitute for House Bill 2102 be withdrawn from the calendar under the order of business, general orders, and be referred to the Committee of Education, on Education.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. Are there announcements? Representative Cindy Howerton will replace Representative Joe Sywert on the House Committee on Corrections and Juvenile Justice on both February 13th and February 14th. This appointment will expire at the end of the day on February 14th. Representative Kyle Hoffman will replace Representative Joe Sywert on the House Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources on both February 13th and February 14th. This appointment will expire at the end of the day on February 14th. Representative Sean Tarwater will replace Representative Dwayne Droege on the House Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources on February 13th. This appointment will expire at the end of the day on February 13th. Representative Sandy Pickert will replace Representative Barb Wassinger on the House Committee on Appropriations on February 14th. This appointment will expire at the end of the day on February 14th. Representative Lon Peshney will replace Representative Charlotte Esau on the House Committee on Legislative Modernization on February 14th. The appointment will expire at the end of the day on February 14th. Representative Stephen Howe will replace Representative Rick Wilborn on the House Committee on Elections on February 13th. This appointment will expire at the end of the day on February 13th. Representative Lauren Bohai will replace Representative King Corbett on the House Committee on Commerce, Labor, and Economic Development on February 14th. This appointment will expire at the end of the day on February 14th. Representative Jason Getz will replace Representative Barb Wassinger on the House Committee on Commerce, Labor, and Economic Development on February 14th. This appointment will expire at the end of the day on February 14th. Representative Cindy Neighbor replaces Representative Valdenia Wynn on the House Committee on Education on Thursday, February 13th. The appointment expires at the end of the day on February 13th. Representative Brandon Woodard replaces Representative Wanda Brownlee Page on the House Committee on Welfare Reform on Thursday, February 13th. This appointment expires at the end of the day on February 13th. Representative Cindy Neighbor replaces Representative Wanda Brownlee Page on the House Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources on Thursday, February 13th. This appointment expires at the end of the day on the 13th. Representative Sidney Carlin replaces Representative Melissa Orpeza on the House Committee on Legislative Modernization on Friday, February 14th. This appointment expires at the end of the day on Friday, February 14th. Representative Susan Reese replaces Representative Heather Meyer on the House Committee on Federal and State Affairs on Friday, February 14th. This appointment expires at the end of the day on the 14th. Now, we'll move on to announcements. Speaker recognizes Representative Delperdang.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For members in here of the Joint Committee on State Building Construction, we will be meeting Monday, February 17th at 12 noon at 159 South. Lunch will be provided, and we are having a general presentation from the Kansas Highway Patrol. 159 South, 12 noon on Monday.
Speaker recognizes Representative Stocksdale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Democrats, in order to start Valentine's Day off on a high note, we will have agenda tomorrow morning at 8:30, 152 South. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker recognizes Representative Neighbor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I mentioned at the beginning of this week, we lost a former House representative member, and I want to give you his funeral time if you just decide to go. And that will be at the Bristol Hill United Methodist Church, 4826 County Line Road, KCK, on Monday, February 24th at 2 p.m. I would like to close too with recognizing he has a son here against the wall who actually works for one of our senators. That's Philip Tomlinson. Philip, our thoughts and prayers are with you and your family. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Waymaster.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, Appropriations Committee members, we're going to be resuming discussion on House Bill 2007, which is the budget bill, at 5 p.m. in 112 North, or upon adjournment of the House Agriculture and Natural Resources Budget Committee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker recognizes Representative Bergquist.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's tough following the biker dude. I wanted to remind the local government committee, we'll be meeting in our regular room at 9 a.m. tomorrow, rather than the Wednesday meeting we're missing. So the agenda is online, and please be there if you could be there. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Much to the Speaker's delight, the House Financial Institutions Committee will be meeting at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. I think much more to the Speaker's delight, I have not requested any subs, so my committee will be there in full tomorrow instead of the lazy bums that do not want to work tomorrow. I do want to emphasize 9 a.m. tomorrow, but we will be in 218 North. 218 North offices, committee room is where we're going to be at tomorrow, 9 a.m. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker recognizes Representative Blake Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just as a reminder, I have the Taiwan resolution over here on my desk if any of you would like to sign on as a co-sponsor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker recognizes Representative Awerkamp.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Welfare Reform Committee will be starting late today. We'll be starting 15 minutes late. So the Welfare Reform Committee will start at 1:45. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker recognizes Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Attention commerce fans. There's been some confusion on our agenda, and then it got even worse on Wednesday when we didn't meet. So Wednesday bills were moved to today. Thursday bills were moved to tomorrow, which means today We're hearing HB 2338, which is the tattoo fix, and then 2340, which has to do with pesticides, and possible action on bills previously heard. Tomorrow, there was a misprint in our earlier agenda. We will not be hearing HB 2239. It was 2339, and that goes to tomorrow. And then HB 2342 also, and that's and then a possible action. We will meet on Monday so that we can take action on all those bills. Thanks.
Speaker recognizes Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Insurance Committee. I told you we didn't need to take yesterday off. Knew we should have been working. Nonetheless, the work that we had scheduled to do on Wednesday is moved until tomorrow at 3:30. Same channel, same room, and we'll just be meeting on a Friday afternoon rather than a Wednesday afternoon. There you go. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Veterans Caucus will meet Monday at lunch, 218 North. Veterans Caucus Monday at noon, 218 North. Thank you.
Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, chairs. The lunch for chairs is still on in our normal room. Seeing no other announcements, the Speaker recognizes the Majority Leader for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just real quick for everybody for next week. So next week, Monday, we will be on the floor, not pro forma. Then we will be on the floor all day. Plan on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We have a lot of work to get through, and we are going to do that hard work and get it done. With that, Mr. Speaker, I move the House adjourn until Friday, February 14th at 11 a.m.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.